right, kids, I am here. I don't have an entrance like fancy podcasts do. This is our mini series. I'm your host, Brittany Young, and today's episode might sting a little. We're going to talk about the truth about you. This is all about you. And the last few episodes were kind of giving you a brief overview of my story, pregnancy, all the things that are going down here in the land of the Youngs. And why am I coming to you on a Tuesday? Well, Fridays, I don't work, and Mondays, I designate to my daughter. So Mondays and Fridays are basically my days off. Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday are really when I'm here in the trenches working, doing the things, getting really nice flowers for this podcast series. And I make no apologies for that. Absolutely no apologies for that. I work part-time as a full-time mom, and I am proud to say that. And I am super happy that I have the honor and privilege to be with her and don't have to send her off to a daycare. Right now, she's at the zoo and she is getting her cup filled with her grandmother time. So that's where we're at today. And, you know, I want to drop this for you because sometimes we don't want to hear the truth. And it's often really impactful, though, when we hear it from a complete stranger and when we hear it from somebody that has a different perspective, has a different voice that we haven't heard truth from yet, or are scared to open up a channel like this and listen in to what the truth may be because it hurts. And when I hear the truth, it stings. It doesn't feel good. And most of the time, it comes from someone that loves me and only wants to see me get better. So, like I said, this one might hurt a little. Truth does not disqualify you. Okay. It delivers you. Truth does not disqualify you. It delivers you. But if only you're brave enough to face it, because a lot of us don't want to face the truth. A lot of us don't want to face it because it could be about your potential. It could be about your performance. It could be about your progress. Let's say you're one of those people that works and you're a 9 to 5er and you're in some high tech job and you're up there and the community respects you and they know you and they love you, but deep down, you don't love you. You have a drinking problem. You're doing things on the internet you shouldn't be doing. Your life outside of work is completely different and not congruent to what it is in the workplace. And you continue to run away from the truth. You continue to run away from yourself, and you've been doing that for years. Why? One, it's convenient. Two, you're not going to get found out, right? No one knows who you are. No one's going to understand, this high pressured position that you have. And so just drinking a little bit, or smoking a little bit, or doing hits of cocaine, it's not that big of a deal. And yet, if you were to poll people and ask them, is doing white lines on your desk smart in the middle of the day before you go to a sales meeting? I would probably say at least 8 or 9 times out of 10, people would say that's a stupid idea. And yet we hide behind these truths and we've run from them for years because we do not want to face our biggest threats, our biggest demons, our biggest problems, because these problems are what we think are keeping us safe. And we think these problems are more easily kept in the dark, um, than they should be with a light shine on them. And I'm arguing that because you are being selfish. You are simply being selfish. And I was a selfish person when I was using alcohol 100%. So I can say with full confidence that I was selfish and self-centered most of the time, if not all of the time, when I was drinking. And I used alcohol as part of my busyness, as part of my success, as part of my way to essentially climb the ladder, if you will, and to avoid my feelings. I did not want to feel. It was something that I could not stand. Allowing someone else to see me vulnerable, see me cry, see me get angry, even though those were all the things that I did when I was drinking. And I don't know you, but what I do know to be true is that your darkest secrets are selfish. They are keeping you stagnant and stuck in a place where they can become very hazardous to yourself and the livelihood of other people because you refuse to reveal them in a way that not only would shine the light on them, but would set you free. And so a lot of us will say, well, yeah, I might be selfish, but I don't really know who I am outside of the accolades that I'm receiving, outside of the applause. I don't want to be exposed. I don't want to be found out because then I'm afraid I won't love who I've become or who I am. And I also am afraid I won't be loved for being me. And I cannot kick this habit because if I kick this habit, my business goes away. If I kick this habit, I don't know how to sell without it. Um, I'm here to empathize with you because if you've ever had that moment where you looked yourself in the mirror and you didn't recognize the person that was looking back at you, or worse, you didn't like what you saw, this episode is exactly for you because exposing the lies that you are living, exposing everything that you are experiencing in the dark, it gets the enemy off your back and it provides clarity not only to you, but you have no idea whose life you might be saving on the other side of your truth. Here's what most people won't tell you. When I decided to put the booze down in September of 2013, I thought that was it, right? I thought, okay, putting this down for good and never picking it up. It's been 11 and a half years. I'm good. I'm good, right? Like I don't have to worry about anything. False. I got hit with a ton of bricks year after year after year because I still refuse to face the 10 years that I drank. I didn't want to look at it. Yeah, I'd go to therapy. Yeah, I would, you know, um, pretend that all was well underneath the surface, do some CBT, EMDR, all this stuff. And I'm married to a therapist. So I can say, there's different modalities for me personally that didn't work. My husband doesn't use those. And he uses more of a psychodynamic perspective on therapy, which if you need to look that up, go ahead. I needed someone to get underneath my skin and pluck out the darkest parts of me that no longer were serving me personally, professionally, and as a person of faith. I needed to be re-examined both in the head and the heart, um, before I made a full commitment to go all in on not only this particular profession, but my walk again with Jesus. And so most people won't tell you that Jesus meets you in, they'll tell you he meets you in the dark, right? But most won't tell you that he meets you in the truth. So where there is light, there is love. Where there is light, there is the Lord, and he meets you there. Yes, he meets you in your darkest depths, which you don't realize because you're out there partying and you're like, well, it's just a line of cocaine. It's just some meth. It's just insert addiction. It's just some sex. No big deal. He meets you there. He meets you after that one night stand, but he also meets you in the truth. And he's not going to meet you uh, on your social media platform in your highlight reel. He's not going to meet you with this polished image. That's why I wear, you know, t-shirts and shorts most of the time these days instead of getting dressed up because who am I dressing up for? Myself? Y'all don't care what I look like. It's more about what you're hearing and the bombs being dropped and the mic being dropped. He doesn't care about your performance. He doesn't care if you're a multimillionaire. All of these things don't matter. What matters is he's going to meet you in the places where you decide to take your mask off and where you can't run from your excuses and you're finally ready to heal. And that's what happened to me. So, yeah, I surrendered alcohol in 2013. Great. Bravo. Good for me. That didn't mean that I fully surrendered my life over to a higher power greater than myself. And I didn't go to AA. I didn't go to Celebrate Recovery. I didn't go to any 12-step program. I didn't go to a rehab or a church to get sober. I got sober on my knees, begging God to save my life. I got sober by showing up 24 hours later at a CrossFit gym. I got sober by somebody looking me in the eye at that CrossFit gym and saying, hey, I've got 5 years under my belt. Welcome in. I got sober because I moved away from the place and the people and the toxicity that was constantly dragging me down and putting me in a negative situation to which I couldn't escape from. And that is not my family. That's other people that I was surrounding myself with. My family walked on eggshells for years, not knowing how to handle what I was experiencing because I wouldn't let them in. And I was holding these deep, dark secrets close to the vest because it was the only thing I knew what to do. When somebody, after assaulting me, says, hey, you need to shut up and not talk and not say a word of what ha just happened and keep it close to you. I held that for 13 years. I didn't tell a soul. And that pain, that, um, you know, that lack of worthiness and that place of putting me in judgment and putting pressure on me, um, which, was all self-induced with the words of someone else. And yet I carried that and I would not let anyone in. And I did not share that with anybody until it was ready to come out. Now, did I find God then? No. I found God in 2022 after our house and our neighborhood got hit by a tornado. The entire neighborhood, majority of the homes got rocked. Okay. We lost our roof. We lost our fence. We had a lot of exterior damage. There were people that lost the entirety of the inside of their homes, windows blown out, you name it. It looked like a war zone, and it went on for months. There were some people that couldn't live in their house for more than a year. In that moment, after that happened, I went outside and I looked around and I thought, okay, this is a natural disaster. Let's practically get on the phone with insurance and all the things. But the next day, there was a bunch of people walking around in these red t-shirts, and I had been praying for a church, praying for a place to settle and call home and all the things. And turns out these people were from a local church. And so my husband went and talked to some folks who were walking around helping, and they helped us with the fence and gather the debris from the roof and all the things. And they told us where they were from, and I just broke down. I thought, okay, this is a sign from God for us to lean into this. So we did, and we went to the church that Sunday, and wow, talk about exposing the truth. They showed a drone footage video of all of the neighborhoods that got hit, including ours. And it just felt like a gut punch. And I remember sitting there sobbing, saying, God, why are you showing this? Like, this is so offensive. How could you do this? How could you allow these people to take this video? And they were showing, all the areas that they were in helping. But I thought, wow, this is like such a gut punch, a loving gut punch. Um, and yet about 5 minutes later, I started praising him. And I'm like, this is a weird place to be. Suffering and praising at the same time. How can they coexist? Well, they do. And they do in such a beautiful fashion because God has grace. And he gives us a grace-filled invitation to stop hiding, stop blaming, and start telling the truth. And what that did for me in 22 was not only to come forth and say, hey, I want to get rebaptized. I want to learn about Jesus. Grew up Catholic. I only learned about God. I didn't learn about Jesus. Some guy up on an altar is preaching and telling these stories from the Bible. I don't even own a Bible. We didn't have a Bible in the house growing up. I didn't own one. I didn't know what it was like to have a relationship with my Lord and Savior. I knew what it was like to have rules and regulations. Now, we could go into the lies of Catholicism and the church and all of that stuff, but that's not what this is about. We got to start telling the truth about our addictions. We got to start telling the truth about our pride and our pains. So if you've been wrongly pained by the church, speak up about it. If you have been dealing with an addiction, you got to tell somebody, even if they're not family. You got to go out and admit to somebody, hey, I've got this issue and I need some help. Whether they tell you F off or not, you still need to expose that demon. That is a spirit that is holding on to you and will wrestle you to the ground until you are dead and it takes you to hell. And we got to get serious about exposing our pride. I'm still prideful, right? Um, I think a lot of us as parents are prideful. We're proud of our kids. We're proud of their accomplishments, but that's not what this life is about. And I tell my 4-year-old, I'm more proud of you that you love who you are and who you love, which is God, than anything that you'll do in this lifetime. I could care less if you decide you want to become a billionaire, a doctor, a lawyer, whatever, it doesn't matter. What matters more is your relationship to the Lord. I mean, she kind of looks at me sideways and it's like, so are you proud of me? I'm like, yes. But I want to invite you, honestly, to meet the real you. I was exposed at the beginning of 2022. I was exposed in 2020, 2013, really, but in 2022 was really the beginning of meeting the real me. Now, that year prior, in 21, I suffered from postpartum anxiety. And there's postpartum depression and there's anxiety. Well, I had the anxiety part. And I did not want to be here. I wanted to die. I loved my baby, but not to the point where I could have given more of myself to her because I hated who I was. I hated my body. I hated that I had to go through a C-section. I hated all those things. I hated my business. I was still stuck in new age and I hated everything that I was doing. And yet I made the most money I'd ever had in a single year. And I wanted to throw it all away and I wanted to go down with it. I wanted to die. I did not want to be here. I slept 3 nights on my bathroom floor, calling out to God, begging Him to take me and take my life. Now, not everybody has, these spiritual encounters, but I'm going to tell you mine real quick. Um, God said, get up and get in your bed. So I get in my bed. And it's the third night. And I'm like, just kill me. Just take me. I don't want to be here. And it was as if I left my body. So um, my spirit left my body and went up to heaven. And I met Jesus. And there was an angel sitting there, rec like recording this back and forth conversation. So I meet Jesus. And he looks at me and he smiles and he says, hi, my child, welcome. This is heaven. You can have this right now, should you choose to come and be with us. I know that you are a sinner. I know that you're broken. And I know that you want a relationship with me. And you have that, right? You're welcome here. At the same time, he also said, but you have a purpose and you still have something going on down on earth. And so you have a choice. You can be here or you can go back into your body and really start living a life of truth. Really start living a life of exposure. Really start living a life, one that's deeply known, one that is about unconditional love and a reminder that you are still chosen. And so I'm looking at him and I'm like, well, I don't really want to die. I want to be with my family. I want to be with my child and my husband and hopefully some more kids to come. I kid you not, it felt like somebody did CPR on my body and pushed me back in to myself. And when I came to, I gasped for air and I don't know what time it was, but I do remember like waking up out of this weird dream, I don't know, encounter, and looking at my husband, he's like, what is going on? And I was so afraid of exposing this to him and telling him, but I was like, here's what just happened. This is the craziest thing. I don't know how to explain it to you, but yeah, I want to live. And in that moment, I snapped out of the postpartum anxiety. And I had been dealing with it for um 18 months. 18 months of feeling this way. And that was in December of 2021. Now, I know I said I made the most money that I ever had in that year. At the same time, I was failing miserably. Credit card debt, in my business really, really badly. I was failing to pay bills. I just didn't have anything together. They were calling left and right, leaving me voicemails like, if you don't pick up, we're going to sue you, blah, blah, blah. And I'm like, you know what? I surrender all of this. I surrender all of this. I'm not taking any of this on. And then January 2022 rolls around and I had like a $65,000 month in my business. And I was doing sales coaching. And then March 2022, we get hit by the tornado. I surrendered to the Lord then, got baptized in June of 2022. And I've been living a life of obedience, trying to, since then. And so I tell you all this because, you know, for a long time, pride kept me stuck and sick. I lived in a life of lies and deception behind my performance, behind my productivity, behind my progress, and this wanting to be perfect. And yet I was suffering on the inside. Emotional maturity, though, requires brutal honesty. So if I'm going to be brutally honest with y'all, how can I not be brutally honest with myself? Right? Why would I come on here and tell you all these stories and tell you all the things if I can't get the truth out of my own head and heart, and expose the lies that I'm living behind first and foremost before telling you all about them? And I hope that you can see in this episode that, I was living a life of guilt and shame. Now I'm living a life of conviction. I don't feel the need to impress you. I don't feel the need to sit here and say that, um, you know, my way of doing it is the right way or wrong way. But what I do know to be true is that I have an identity in Christ Jesus. And to be perfectly honest with you, you do too, because you are beyond your titles. You are beyond your coping mechanisms. They are not going to save you at the end of the day. And you are allowed to move from this fear of exposure, fear of allowing the dark to be exposed, to a freedom of being fully known in your identity in Jesus. And they are two completely different realms of being. So if you decided this week, or even today, or in this moment, I am going to share the truth, how will you do it? Will you do it through prayer and surrender and repentance and forgiveness? Will you do it through journaling? Will you do it through speaking to someone that allows you to feel safe? How will you expose the truth? Because we often think, oh, I have to expose lies. No, you're exposing your truth. My addiction was my truth. That was the identity I wrapped myself up in like a warm blanket at the end of the night. And I didn't know another identity. And so I needed to expose that truth wholeheartedly. It wasn't a lie. I was living a lie. I was living a lie of deception. I was living the lie of, I have everything together. I checked all the boxes off. Life is great. That's the lie I was living. But to expose the truth of addiction, that is way more powerful than letting, these lies overtake you. So I'll leave you with this. This is a gut check for you and for me, because the more we stop projecting blame and the more we start telling the truth, we can allow the enemies of deception to go fly a kite, and we can allow Jesus to come in, spread that light throughout our life, our body, you name it, our homes, our finances, our marriages, our children, etc., and find that new identity of how do I become fully known? How do I become fully known as this truth seeker and truth teller and just truth person all the way around? And if that is something you have been seeking, and if that is something that you desire and you want to leave your addictions behind, you no longer want to live a life of pain and you want to expose those truths, you have the ability to do that. Because again, like I said back in, episode 2, um, alcohol is it's a business. And it's been culturally acceptable. It's been conditioned for us to take part in that. But what if you went against it? Because there's three types of addiction. There's fun with problems, and then there's problems. Which camp do you fit in? For me, at the end of the day, I was in the problem camp. I had so many more problems than I knew what to do with. And the only way that I knew how to lay it all down was surrender. That was it. So I leave you this, and our next episode is going to be probably just as spicy. Let me give you kind of a preview of what we'll dive into. You are not a victim, you are a leader, right? So we're going to talk about the pressures of drinking, running a business, climbing the ladder, taking care of all the things that are around you, and yet you've got this deep, dark secret. And so continuing to expose the lies to become truth in your life. And my friend, I see you. I hear you. And I love you. And remember, the truth does not disqualify you. It delivers you, but only if you're brave enough to face it.